Welcome to another episode of Think Out Loud. And this week's episode has a special guest. I have known this person for a very long time and worked with them for over 18 years. Today we've got the founder and CEO of Digital Clarity, Reggie James. Welcome.
Hello, Rachel. What an honour to be talking to you like we never talk to each other ever at all. But
we talk to each other probably every day.
Every day,
so, yeah, for the last 18 years.
Yes. Has it been 18 years? My God.
It's been a long time.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, indeed.
Just like yesterday.
So, what I was thinking about this week, Reggie, was it would be really good to do a very quick intro so that some of the audience can understand a little bit about Reggie James, not just as the business owner, but maybe just a little bit about you.
Sure.
And then we can go into some questions about digital marketing. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Fantastic. So let's start with a quick fire round. What is your favourite food?
Favourite food? My goodness, this is random. I have, well, you can tell by the look of me that I like quite a lot of wide variety of food. But I think if I had to, if it was on a desert island, I'll try and get down to three things. Probably, I love curry, so spicy foods of all variety, Mexican, Chinese, Indian, etc., or Thai, I would say. I love traditional fish and chips, one of my faves always. And then, which I also find is a good hangover food, it's a good old spag bowl. Can't beat it.
Spag bowl. So of those, what's your top choice?
Fish and chips.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd go with the curry myself. But there we go.
It's a close one.
Okay, so if there was only one TV program you could watch ever again, it could be a Netflix, it could be on mainstream TV, what would it be? And you have to watch it on repeat, nothing else, just that one TV program.
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. Well, that I can answer that fairly quickly because although I love lots of stuff on TV, Netflix do some great stuff. I would probably go for Breaking Bad.
Oh, good choice.
Because it's so long and the characters are so complex. I have always said that it's very Shakespearean in the way that it's written. I know people are very snobby about it, but it's so well written. You really invest in all the characters and the plot and the subplot. So I'm actually currently watching Better Call Saul, which is why it's quite fresh in my mind. Even that is fantastic. So the precursor to that. So I loved that. Is probably the one. If I'm only choosing one, it would probably be Breaking Bad.
Good shout. Okay, two more quick fire questions to go. So your most annoying habit?
My most annoying habit, that's probably worth asking the rest of the team. But I know that people get annoyed when I'm on the phone because I have a tendency to walk up and down or around the office or around the room talking to people on the phone. And while they're busy trying to get on with stuff, I'm wandering around and talking rather loudly where I think I'm talking quietly.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, so it's a good way of getting my steps in, actually. So, yes. So, yeah, probably that, I would say, amongst many other bad habits that I have that annoy them.
So, in combat to that, what is your best trait?
My best trait? Oh, my goodness, you've really got me here. I wish you told me.
Don't be embarrassed.
My best trait? I would say, unlike the male species, I actually do listen. It may not seem like it all the time, but I do actually listen and I take quite a lot on board. And, months, almost sometimes years later, I can sort of recall things and people go, oh my gosh, you were listening. So, yeah, I would say that I'm a pretty good listener.
Fantastic.
And
okay.
A great liar. Sorry, no.
That gives us a good insight into you, Reggie, for anyone listening who hasn't met you before. And I know you know a huge, vast number of people. So hopefully we have some listeners as well who have met you and myself even as well. So let's just dive a little bit into a bit more of a business discussion. So you had the chance a long time ago to set up any business. What made you decide on setting up Digital Clarity?
It's a great question. 70 years ago now, it was a different world back then. I was working, had worked in international sales for a big search engine, US search engine called, people may or may recall it or may not, Alta Vista, which was then acquired by Yahoo. And my role was to deal with clients direct and their agencies. And one thing was really clear, that agencies had very little understanding of search or how search engines worked, but they were really keen to understand that more. And I could see that search engines were going to become commercialized. So with that in mind, set up Digital Clarity with a colleague of mine that I was working with at the time, and we set up the agency. And the agency was designed specifically to help predominantly at the time media planner buyers of big agencies actually do search better. And that's why we and how we set, as you know, Rich, when you came on board, that 90% of our clients were other big London-based agencies, which our DNA is still very deep in, and that is what we did. That's why I set up that particular business. Years later, we set up a tracking technology which was used by about 50 or 60% of all the planning buying agencies, called DC Storm. The DC standing for Digital Clarity, and that was ultimately sold a few years later to Rakuten, owners of Play.com. Interesting journey, but yes. So that's why the company was set up, and still to this day is there to.
And so, thanks for that. And so, bringing that up to date to today, and in what has been some challenging times for a number of different businesses. So, where would you like that theme, that helping businesses to do digital marketing better? Is that still the foundation that Digital Clarity sits upon?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, our role now has moved. Just given the vast experience you touched on 18 years that we've been working together, if you add in all the years that I've dealt with other businesses and agencies prior to that, the thing that we do now is actually help businesses understand almost themselves before they even deal with the marketing function. And so we are very much in the strategy and planning side of things, which is sorely missing within the overarching church of digital marketing. People just think, I need to do some social media, or I need to do some search marketing. They very rarely sit back and plan what they need to do. So 9 times out of 10, they end up failing on whatever vague goal or target that they may have had. What we do is take a step back and actually help them understand what it is they're very good at, and then work back from what target or goal they're looking to achieve by marrying the two things together. So we like to see ourselves as a bit of a McKinsey or developing ourselves into that kind of role, where we're very much a trusted advisor to a variety of different brands.
Okay, and so as I mentioned, there's been lots of businesses have had lots of different challenges over COVID and lockdown, and businesses reopening and then being shut down again. 2021 was always, everyone was hoping once 2020 had passed that 2021 was going to be a completely different kettle of fish, and the early days of that have not really panned out because we were still in lockdown, which was unexpected when we were looking in the summer of 2020. Looking forward, we were thinking by now we'd be out of this. But what do you think that 2021, the remaining part of this year, will bring for businesses? How do you think it's going to pan out? Do you see that as a positive route? Do you see there's further challenges ahead? What would your advice be?
gosh, that's such a tough question. But I think that, I mean, we're sat here in DC Towers, here at Portland House, and yesterday saw the big awakening, the Kraken kind of awakening with the big, non-essential shops opening up after a long time in the wilderness. I think the reality of it is, and this is a personal view, and also some of the data that you look at, you can't compare year-on-year data because this time last year we were all locked down. But if you look at the year previous, I was listening to a retail analyst. If you look at retail specifically, sales are still down quite substantially, about 24%, I think they were saying. But as we're coming out of this, and as Boris said, this is an irreversible, we're not going to be going back to lockdown, he says, fingers crossed and everything else crossed. But if that's the way we're going, then I think there will be baby steps back to some level of recovery. But I don't think we're going to see that until the last quarter, or even the glimmers of that until the last quarter. I also believe that this whole thing of money that was saved by the general public, the hard-earned cash, I can't see people spending that. People say it's like a cold spring and people are going to spend. If they do, great. But I think a lot of people have done without for a year and actually found the whole experience quite humbling and actually quite interesting. So I think that in itself is actually quite an interesting impact on the economy. But I think equally, as the vaccination rollout, and I know that's quite controversial in itself, but as that rolls out and people become more confident, those businesses that are in a position to do so will start investing in themselves, in hiring, in marketing, and training up their teams. And if that happens, then I think we will start seeing growth back in the beginning of 2022. I think 2021 is about playing catch up because we're in a year in the wilderness.
Yeah, so maybe getting your ducks in line in prep for.
Yeah, I think it's all about. Really re-establishing who you are, changing and adapting to this new brave new world that we're coming out into. People have changed. They engage differently. We can see that in our own analytics data that we look at, and for our clients. And it's really the sentiment as well is totally different. So, there's a lot of change still going on. There was change happening within society and community and the business community before the pandemic hit. There was a little thing called Brexit happening as well. All of that in this massive melting pot, I think is still being played out in 2021. So I suppose the only constant is that there will always be change from now on moving forward. And what that change is, it's very, very hard to predict. Who would have thought Bitcoin would have hit $60,000 plus per Bitcoin, or the growth in cryptocurrencies, or you'd be buying artwork through an NFT, a non-fungible token, i.e. a digital piece of art. So the world has totally changed, and what the world will look like in 2022 may be, again, very, very different. We know one thing, it won't be like it was as we knew it back then.
Thank you. Some amazing insights there, Reggie. And I think just to touch on that change is happening all around us, and sometimes it can be quite anxiety provoking when you're unfamiliar with what that change might be, which one of the other podcasts on my channel, you can tap into that, and I just sort of talk about some thoughts around that as well, how change can have lots of different impacts on people, and it's important to sometimes consider what that's going to be on you. So thank you so much for joining me today, Reggie. It's been a real pleasure to have you on.
An absolute pleasure. Really, really good. I really enjoyed that. I've maybe a bit of warning next time. I might be able to put some of
But I think also, hopefully, the listeners can hear the authenticity and that there's not been a kind of practice or a rerun of any of these questions. They were kind of answered a bit on the hop as well. But interesting, because I didn't know that fish and chips was your top choice. I would have always gone for the curry.
Well, it's a close tie. It's like Desert Island Disc. It's like choosing, 8 tracks, whatever. It's virtually impossible.
Or trying to choose your favourite child.
Well, yes, absolutely. It's virtually impossible, yes.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to the listeners. And that's been another episode of Think Out Loud. See you next week. Bye.